How are we both trained? We're almost there. We did get the level up. We got a little bit more spell casting. We'll be able to cast that spell quite well. There's our friends, the Death Yaks. I've got... Oh. Oh. We're just going to use this a lot. What are we doing here? These will hit me pretty bad, and as you can see, they're breaking free really easily. But I can probably finish maybe not all of them off with this, but yeah, pretty much all of them. Normally I would like to, I'll have some friends. Tried to get in and get all those skeletons, but I didn't quite succeed there. I am going to rest off. I'm going to lose a bunch of these skeletons due to resting, but it's more important to be rested than it is to have skeletons. So yeah, I destroyed a pack of... Yeah, I mean, these are well above average defenses, I would say. So the point wasn't to get... I'm not going to let myself like get surrounded and caught or anything like that. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to tank them or anything. I'm saying that I can move around them a bit. I might take some hits. I've got nearly 100 HP, so it's not going to be the end of the world. You know, I've got consumable escape and all that stuff, so I'll be fine. Don't worry, this ain't my first rodeo. Oh, but magic dart. Why? I don't know. Just because I wanted to use it. Got some wolves. These guys can overwhelm you sometimes if you're not careful. Just going to set up some allies to help get them bunched up, and then mostly just EVC plus... There's another elephant pack. These guys can be kind of a problem. Now they can actually push you back, so that's sort of an issue. This is a kind of a nasty fight. Do I have our poison? I do have our poison right now. We can confuse them a bit, but that means they're going to struggle. So we're just going to have to see what we get from this. It's going to be a little bit weird. We're going to run out of... Yeah, I mean, they may push me off the stairs, but the thing is, getting pushed off stairs is relevant, but it's always something you can adapt to. Key thing is just don't panic. Don't panic and start making a flood of like crazy moves when you get pushed off stairs or something like that. Be aware that it can happen and realize that it's usually not the end of the world. Don't set up a situation where you have to take a stairs. It's really dangerous, but everything will be fine so long as you can take stairs. It's okay, Tobias. I've won several games of Crawl before. I know how to play it. I'm good. Remember, the chat rules are don't backseat. Okay, cool. The other day I was chilling, hanging out. Some air ambulance thought it'd spin around. Well, that may not happen forever, Reels. We'll have to see. We may remove that effect. Marvin PA is not amused. I need to find something that air elementals could maybe do that would actually be interesting The problem I had with air elementals is they just don't do anything. Eat the purple. I do have purple to eat, and I will be eating purple. Although you can see it's more like cyan in console for me. But to you guys, no, it's probably cyan for you as well, because I colored it. I think the tile for it is purple. The new air elemental Sojo much worse. It made him more complicated. It didn't actually make him more dangerous. It just made him more complicated to deal with. He's definitely he's perplexing players quite a bit. By the time you fight Sojo, you just have so many tricks up your sleeve that I think what players what they tend to do is they try to do the one thing to fight everything, because the game is pretty long and you want to tab through stuff. And then part of what developers try to do is throw a few curveballs at the player so that things are interesting. And that can come off as very annoying because it just breaks your flow of the game. But at the same time, if you don't have anything unexpected throw your way, remove the damage of the air elemental, give it a name. That's an interesting idea, actually. I think we had sort of been tossing around something somewhat like that. Yeah, because the self-damage is sort of an issue, isn't it? The problem I have with that is that solo air elementals will still basically do nothing, and so it's not quite the effect that I want. The problem is that they have to be able to be like a viable monster that you fight solo, because their main appearance is in Elf. That's basically that's where they appeared. Marvin P.A. removed them from Air Elementalist. I was going to tweak it so that they're better about deciding when to casting it, but it doesn't really change the fundamental issue, because they are going to do self-damage a bunch. Yeah, well, they will do damage to you, but the thing is, don't get caught up in fighting them. One, remember that they're extremely weak monsters. And two, remember that you can just set up a fight so that the air elementals really aren't too much of a factor, and you've got a bunch of tricks up your sleeve you can do to do that. Anything from silence, if you like to use silence, I personally don't too much, to manipulating LOS so that he's not going to be able to get the summons in view. There's a lot of tricks you can do. And Berserker obviously can't use spells, but he can use the Silent Scroll, he can use summons, he can use evocations. So don't try to use, if there's a weird monster like that pulls positioning tricks, just don't try to use the tab approach. Melee is not the only trick that you have up your sleeve. God, wouldn't it be nice if I had Bolt of Drain memorized? Yeah, that's typically what happens. People get a little bit, they're like, I don't feel like messing around. Oh, I thought you said bored, but you said Trog Road. And yeah, right, summons will work just fine. Die. But yeah, it's an interesting idea giving them only the movement without the damage, but I think it's probably not going to be a good call. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it a little bit more and see if there's some way that they can do something good. Those monsters, the elemental monsters, all basically exist for flavor reasons more than anything. And that's not a great reason for a monster to exist. Fire elementals don't really do too much. They just don't show up in too many contexts. They show up only basically as summons and in a few vaults. They do actually place an elf, so they have really some of the same problems. Earth elementals, likewise. It's not a great class of monsters. They basically only exist for flavor reasons. I say they do need to be viable solo monsters, and yeah, Moth of Wrath is a good example of one that works. But Moths of Wrath, they're just really effectively highly dangerous as solo. Air elementals, it's just so situational whether or not they're going to be relevant. I mean, they're going to be relevant sometimes, but it doesn't feel like it's very equivalent. It's not. I'm not saying it's a horrible idea. I'm saying it's not ideal to me. And another thing that's nice about Moths of Wrath, at least they can bite you and berserk you. That's kind of cool. Air elementals really can't do anything with their melee attack except hit you really fast. It's just pathetic. But yeah, I think the main thing is that Moths of Wrath are relatively, you know, they are really just for the status effect mostly, but I think they work better than air elementals probably would. But it's a possible idea. Yeah, water elementals are one of the ones that work best, I feel, because they do some reasonable damage for when you encounter them, and the engulf thing can actually be, you know, kind of relevant. You know, it both does damage, and it's a bit of a wacky effect, but it does something. So I think those are the most successful of all the elemental monsters. I mean, the air or the earth elemental thing that the elementalists have is kind of a cute trick, but it only works in concert with that monster. It doesn't work. They don't really do much on their own, which is kind of unfortunate because they do actually appear on their own. Wow, that frog! He didn't make it away. All right. Almost got Bolt of Drain. It'll be a little bit more convenient of a way to This is the only guy who's got a Hex that I would care about their MR that appears in Lair. Earth elementals throw large rocks. Well, we already have Stone Giants to do that and Cyclops, so they wouldn't. It would just be a clone of that monster, I think, which isn't a good way to go. I mean, you can make that criticism about quite a few monsters, but that's a little bit just too close to something that already exists. Yeah, but the movement is probably the thing that Real said is probably the best idea I've heard so far about what you could do that wouldn't be quite so bad. So yeah, I'm just gonna BVC this guy. It's gonna these monsters. A lot of these I can really safely just tab them with some BVC. This will be so we got Snake. That's a pretty good branch for me to get because Nagas have a really hard time dealing with this spell. Even if they break free, they can't really catch you. No, we will not have them roll like boulder beetles. That we will definitely not do. Looks like I got a nice little vault somewhere over here. Oh hey, he like turned into a Komodo dragon. That's cheating. Not allowed to do that. So constrict both of these guys. Oh, I see. It's one of these vaults. Oh, looks like we maybe got swamped too. This is another monster that may be changing in trunk. I may be adding slurp worms soon. Oh, that's what I'm tentatively calling them. They will be... Basically, swamp worms will lose their secret hiding thing, and they will have a kind of like a slurp attack that pulls you in adjacent, that will have pretty decent range, but it won't be close range, and I guess it will damage you at the same time. Hey Drew, kasi. Not sure how to say that. Yes, I've been calling them slurp worms. I have a branch started to make them, but I have to figure out how to do their attack. Maybe as a bolt attack, a pure bolt attack, or if it needs a more complicated implementation, because it has to move the player, so the attack will be... Is it defended by EV? Yes. It will hopefully be a beam, a normal bolt attack. I'm using the crawl code terminology. The attacks that you see that are like any kind of projectile or a ranged attack, there's a structure. It's a class really, but it's declared as a struct. It's called bolt. And beam.cc is the infamous source code file where that's defined. It's like 4,000 lines or 6,000 lines. It's the epitome of crawl code. And that's it's a nice structure to use because it has all the logic that you need. Okay, this guy, I need to not let him kill me. These guys, they're full of goo. They don't have skeletons. So yeah, it'll probably be a beam attack, which means it'll check EV normally. It will possibly actually be an outright projectile, so it would check SH as well. That seems like it would make sense for something like that. So yeah, it probably will check both. Yeah, it's monster lesser beckoning, that's right. Except lesser beckoning is more like it also works through a bolt, but it's like a beam type bolt, which means that it doesn't use a projectile and it can't be blocked. But this one will probably be blockable in addition to being dodgeable. You have to, Flood Killer, and don't tell me that you've not looked at that file extensively. I know you have. You can't implement anything in this game without eventually casting your eyes upon beam.cc. It's this, we talk about refactoring that file, but nobody wants to sit down and refactor such a huge thing. Thank you for the follow, Dayspace 76. Hadn't heard that sound in quite a long time. Oh man, Bolt of Drain is online. Guess I'm... And Dispel Undead, but we're gonna go with Bolt of Drain because that's pretty convenient. Also, Simulacrum is only 26%. Any good robes? Magic. We will probably put on the MR robe when we go to Orc because there are... Because there are... I missed whose name that was, but thank you for the follow. So I might have to check my keyboard. Another thing I need to order is a new keyboard. Yeah, there are Orc Sorcerers in Orc, and it's good to have MR. Easy game, easy win. Oh yeah, here's the swamp entrance, Book of the Sky. Tornado, I don't think we're going to be getting to Tornado anytime soon. Yep. Everybody dies to an Orc Sorcerer at one point. Let's see. Oh, speaking of worms, lol. You enjoy your sneak attack for now, Mr. Worm. This is a waste of acid charges. Wish I had a Wand of Flame, but I don't. Completely wounded. Oh, I guess that'll work. Yeah, this vault also has, in addition to having swamp worms, spooky swamp worms ambushing you. It's funny because this vault used to not have hidden ones because swamp worms were not... They weren't submerged, were they? Crap. They've changed a bunch over the years. I actually do forget if they... Maybe they were. I seem to recall at some point they were not initially submerged. I think that was part of the change to make Submerge more relevant, was that they started out that way, so it wasn't like, oh. Okay, now we've taken some damage. Just making some summons, just in case I need to swap last minute. Allies are really handy for that. Mr. Hydra. It's our first Hydra. Oh. Can Bolt of Drain you, my friend. Look at those level ups. My crossbow skill finally online. Oh, that reminds me, actually. I guess I could use a launcher. Is there a launcher? No, there's not. And yeah, the short bow. This is the Gnoll thing that I have to get used to, is the fact that they can use so much stuff. But it's a hand crossbow. Delay on the short bow. Really need to turn off that sound, that escape sound. It's really annoying. If you hit escape when there's nothing, I guess it's delete. It will make a little sound. I never turn it off, but on stream it's really annoying. It's like a longbow, but it's shorter. It's good. 1.3 base delay, 6 min delay. So 14, I think we're quite a ways away from that, but it's probably a decent delay. It's MP I have, I'm not going to mess around with it right now. Maybe eventually, though. Is there one that was just lying around? It's not, doesn't even have an ego or enchantment. Whoa. Mostly, if you're just going to contribute ideas, I would say there's two things about contributing ideas. It depends on whether or not you actually want to do dev. Enough that I might be willing to do the legwork. Okay, yeah, if you're willing to contribute code, you can submit a pull request and you can ask for some help in the dev channel with devs if you have development questions. So yeah, and you can make a branch for it in your own clone of the repo and submit a pull request from your branch. It's basically kind of a thing you have to go through on GitHub. As far as the design goes, that's always the hardest part of it. Coding it is difficult, and depending on your experience level, how much time you have, that might even end up being the most difficult part from your point of view, but really it's the design is usually the hardest thing to get right. And you kind of want to get some feedback on it. So a good way to start is maybe to post the design on GDD so you can hear some of the most like acerbic people comment on it. You know, I'm sure Minmay will have a negative a negative reaction to whatever you propose, but some of the negative ideas are really helpful just to get a sense of what things we don't need more of, what things are just an outright bad idea, even if you're kind of attached to them, what things are likely to make people unhappy with the god. And you'll get some positive feedback as well, of course. We have a lot of gods in the game, so there's a bunch of gods that are in need of reform. I could name a bunch of them. You might disagree about which ones need reform and which ones you might feel like working on. Well, Wujian goes back even further than months. It's well over a year. Wujian is not an ideal example of the development sort of cycle. It took quite a long time that Steel Neuron had to refine his idea, and he's a very good coder, and he certainly has a lot of like vision behind his idea, but it took him a long time to get his sort of like vision actually into DCSS, into the DCSS mindset, I would say. So Reels hopefully can do a faster job of that. Steel Neuron is excellent at turning around code that's good code pretty quickly though, and that really helped him out a lot. In addition to the fact that he was willing to change his design around and just be persistent. So you have to kind of be willing to not give up and endure. A lot of people they feel very put off by that, and they're like, well, look, it's my design. I should have the final say. But unfortunately, this is a really highly collaborative project, so you have to be not too attached to every aspect of what you're proposing. But yeah, you can start by making a branch. It's really good to get initial early on feedback, both from the community, also from the devs. So maybe after a first pass on GDD, you could ask some devs what they think. And you can start coding it whenever you want, of course. It's just that it might get changed. Well, that's good, Reels, but it's an open source project with a bunch of collaborators, and you have to work with this group of people. So what I'm trying to say is don't go against the flow of the project. Try to work with it and just sort of be attentive to what people are telling you, especially devs, I would say. A lot of people get frustrated because they're like, I have this thing about which I can't compromise. And the teams that you work with are probably professional programmers, professional designers, and it's a different set of rules. And you probably have things like deadlines and people who have, it's sort of different. Whereas we can just look at it and go, oh, it doesn't meet our notion, and if it gets rejected, nobody, it's just it just gets rejected. That's it. There's no repercussions. So it can be a frustrating and weird process for a lot of people, even if they're experienced programmers, even if they've worked on other games. Yeah. Some things not to do is be antagonistic, which I know you weren't. I'm mentioning it because we've had contributors in the past who have had nice stuff, nice code, nice ideas, but they take a kind of antagonistic view towards working with others. And if you're a professional, this is the kind of thing that you wouldn't do. But for some of these people, they've ended up very frustrated because they think that you have to argue your way through, and you kind of have to learn just to compromise. But yeah, like you said, you're probably used to doing that, which is good. And yeah, I didn't mean to single you out or anything, but that was a rant I wanted to make because a lot of people, when they're trying to contribute, they just, let's just say that they don't go about it in the best possible way. A lot of the stuff that came in this last release, it was a very outsider contributor heavy release. Steel Neurons, Wuxian, Flood Killers, Gnoll idea. Like I said, BBC came from an idea from Mikey, who made a spell proposal, and I basically, another thing you can have is have the ear of a developer, and Mikey's, a long-time community member who's well known by many of the all of the devs really. And so we listen to somebody like that because we know he has good ideas, and that always helps. But that's the kind of thing where if you've been around for years, you're more likely to be listened to. Some people get frustrated sometimes, like how come Minmay gets listened to so much, and why do they play favorites? But being around and contributing to chat and working with the devs is a big it's a big benefit. If you're a good player and you really get crawl and you know how to work with the team, you've chatted a lot with devs, that's really helpful, especially if you're not going to write code, because ideas, if you don't write code, somebody has to really like your idea and want to spend the time to work on it. And even if you know, there's just no guarantees. But if you're willing to write code, that's definitely a huge leg up.